Hi, so we're back. This is part two of the one we started yesterday on codependency. And this section, we're going to talk a bit about boundaries. Boundaries are those things that we create to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves safe. And if we don't have boundaries and everybody can kind of get into our emotional space or our physical space or our intellectual space uh, and start to interfere with what we're trying to do. And often we allow that because we're trying to please people, we're trying to get along with people, we're trying to help people sort out their stuff. But we need to be able to create some boundaries to protect ourselves, but uh, and it isn't so much to push people away, and that's often how it's interpreted, is to keep people away or keep what they're doing away from us. Really, what the boundaries are for ourselves, so that we have a much firmer idea about what's good for us or what isn't. So I'm going to share a screen with you, which I should have done before, and flip to present. And there's that "You're Fine, How Am I" cartoon that we talked about yesterday. And again, that's a pretty common approach or reaction that lots of people have to other people around them. We get tied up in worrying so much about how other people are feeling or how other people are doing. And whether we're a teacher or a parent, those kinds of things can really start to affect us. So we'll go to this and listen to this TED Talk on boundaries.
Everyone is in the middle of a life story, and your story is being shaped by what you are saying yes to and what you are saying no to. Your yeses and nos are what boundaries are made of. So what are boundaries? How do we build them? How do we heal when our boundaries are violated? And how do we push through boundaries? These questions have been the center of my life and my work. When I was a little kid and my world was just my family, I was pretty sure we were the only ones struggling with those questions. And then I grew up and I became a family therapist. And I saw lots of people struggling with these questions. And when I took a detour and ran nonprofits, I saw communities and leaders struggling with these questions. So now I teach workshops and wrote a book to help people answer these questions. And as people answer these questions and learn more about their boundaries, I've watched hundreds of people make the journey from being overwhelmed and exhausted and stressed out to people who trust themselves and are decisive and are committed to healthy relationships. I'm going to share some stories and some tools that you can use to strengthen your boundaries. Let's begin with the most essential boundary tool that everyone has. Take a moment and visualize a compass in your hand. It looks just like this. It has two words on it, yes and no, and only those two words. You use this compass to make your decisions, figure out your relationships, and set your boundaries for your whole life. Today I'm going to talk about how you can use this compass to place boundaries where you need them the most, lower your stress, and figure out your life's purpose. Now, the key to placing boundaries where you need them the most is tolerating stormy emotions. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather had one way of doing things, his way. And when I was 24, he came to me and he asked me to be the executor of his will. And I asked him, what was it he wanted me to do after he died? And when he told me, I got all this stress inside because there were things I didn't want to do to other family members on his behalf. And I really wanted to please him, but I couldn't say yes to all this stuff. So I told him, no, I couldn't be his executor. And he did what most people do when you tell them no. He got angry. You know, when you listen to your own yes and no, other people are going to get angry or they may get disappointed. Boundary setting will unleash emotions. And yes and no are not feelings. So I couldn't let my fear of my grandfather's anger, nor my desire to please him, determine my boundaries. Now, sometimes your compass is clouded over, and you can't see if something is a yes or a no for you. And this happens if you've been ignoring your compass or arguing with it because you don't like what it's saying. Years ago, I wanted to be a writer. And I was very busy working, and I couldn't figure out how writers made time to write and earn a living. So I took this yes, and I shoved it to the side. Those are the writers that are here. and, and my daughters and I were attending this writing camp week-long thing for middle schoolers, and I got to go as a chaperone. And one night, this real writer got on the stage, and he told us how he made time to write, what he said yes to with his time, and what he said no to in order to complete his books. He lived very cheaply, and his sole job was writing. There was my answer. So for 2 years, I saved my money, I lowered my expenses, and then when the time came when I had my money saved up, I devoted myself to writing. All that work, and in like just a few short months, my yes became a no. Writing is a solo sport. You sit alone all day. There I was, talking to my dog. Oh, this is not the move for me. I'm a people person. So I listened to my no, I went back to working with people, and I saved some of my time for writing. That was a much better fit. Now, if you pay attention to this compass, it just gives you the basic guidance, the yes and the no. It doesn't give you any details. You have to figure out the details. But the thing is, you can trust this compass because it's only trying to do one thing, and that's take care of you. And if you allow your compass and your boundaries to take care of you, it'll mitigate stress. And stress is a very serious issue. According to the American Psychological Association, 50 to 58% of us, I'm not going to say who, are suffering from high stress. That's kind of a shocking number. And employers who are listening may want to pay attention to this and think about how important is decision-making on the job, because this compass is highly sensitive to stress, and stress clouds over your compass. I teach people boundary skills so that they can reduce and prevent their stress from accumulating. The challenging thing, though, is that setting boundaries is just a little stressful, right? It's brief stress, though. Like, once you get over that brief stress of actually doing it, you feel all this relief. And I call that brief stress sweating. You're going to do a little sweating when you set your boundaries. I sweat, and I teach this stuff. So let's go back to this compass in your hand. It is only trying to take care of you.
Oh, sorry.
But the thing is, you can trust this compass because it's only trying to do one.
Totally screwed
Those
that up.
really well are going to have high stress if they aren't managing their boundaries. Self-care is a much bigger landscape than eating and exercise. Self-care is how you treat yourself. It's how you find enjoyment, play, happiness, balance, rest, and companionship. I'm the first to admit, though, that self-care can be really hard, and it took me a long time to learn how to do it. In the past, and I like saying past, I was a workaholic caretaker. And back then, I was running an agency that was serving teens who were homeless. It was an agency that I started and I was deeply committed to. And over the years, as the organization grew, it needed more and more from me. So what if I was up night after night trying to make that budget work, and I couldn't a lot of the time? So what if I was on call 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, year after year, after year? So what if I was getting sick from watching so much child abuse? So what if I actually had post-traumatic stress from it? I ignored my own care until one day I was sitting in this dark movie theater and I was crying and crying. I broke. I couldn't stop crying. And I realized something inside was trying to reach me. And as I listened to my tears, I understood that I couldn't keep running this organization that I started and that I loved. My compass was saying no for my well-being. That was really hard to take, my well-being up against all these kids who needed help. So I dug deep with my compass about my purpose, and I understood that maybe it had been my purpose to start the organization, but 10 years later, the community loved and could care for this organization. And so I spent a year with my board of directors, and we transitioned leadership to new leaders for the organization. And I want to tell you, it's still standing 24 years now, taking care of kids every day. Well, that's to you guys. Every day and every night, doing exactly what it was designed to do, the way it was designed to do it. And I learned from my compass that other people could take care of the kids and the staff and the organization, but only I could take care of me. And then I had to face my workaholic. Oh my. My workaholic, she's terrifying. She's worse than my grandfather. My workaholic never says, "Oh, take a break. You've done enough." My workaholic is crazy, and she just keeps going and going and going. And I had to intervene with some care for me. And my care for me got better and better, year after year, step by step. Now I challenge myself every day to do some of my work and then do something that I love, that I can fit into each day. So I knit more, I hang out with my friends. My friends are kind of shocked that I have time for them. My husband and I, we do less chores and we just have more fun. And my daughters and I are in this ongoing conversation about healthy living as they both grew up and went into healthcare. Go figure. And this summer, on a hot, sunny day, I was watching this eagle soaring overhead at the beach. I remember everything about this day. It was a Tuesday, a work day. I had taken my lunch. I drove 4 minutes from my office to the beach, and there I was, taking a 45-minute lunch break, watching this eagle and listening to the waves. Now that's recovery. Now I need to warn you, even if you're doing all the boundary pieces, like you've separated your feelings from your boundaries, and you're doing some good self-care, and you're really listening to your yes and no, and maybe you've recovered from workaholism or numbing out. Even when you do all these pieces really, really well, there are going to be some things that are going to challenge your boundaries, and they're going to make things extra hard. None of us are immune to health issues, to a financial crisis, or to a family member who has an addiction problem. And some of you are dealing with those struggles every day. Some of you are dealing with really tough challenges at your job every day. There are 3 things that you can do to support your compass. First, increase your self-care. You may already be doing some self-care, but you need to step it up. When your loved one has breast cancer, what I always see is your care for you goes down while you care for someone else. And taking that time to care for yourself may seem completely ridiculous in the face of such a big challenge. But I want to see the care for you go up while you care for someone else, so that you're a stronger support in the long run for you and for them. The second thing to do is to reach out and build a web of resources. Your compass may not have enough information to guide you through the challenge that you're dealing with. We're not all experts in everything. Find people who have this expertise, join a support group, see a therapist, take a class, reach out. The third thing to do is to really focus on choosing your responsibilities and limiting your time during a challenge. During a challenge, we have like tons of extra responsibilities just coming down the hill at us, and you can't do it all. You have to decide what you will and won't be responsible for, and you have to let go of some of the rest. And nowadays, our technology has created this illusion that you are all a device that is always on. And now more than ever, you need to be careful and be protective so that you have some time to recover during a big challenge and times when you're not doing ongoing problem solving. All of you are in the middle of a life story. And your story is being shaped by what you are saying yes to and what you are saying. If you shut out the noise and listen, you're going to find yourself going through life with less stress and profoundly in tune with your purpose. Thank you.
Where's my camera? So, I'll just leave her in that very gentle bow for a minute. Some really good messages in there, and I've been working in the teaching world for like 49 years, and I know that the vast majority of teachers care deeply, and the vast majority of students know that teachers care deeply, and that's an important part of the art of teaching. And we have to be really careful that we don't care so much that we forget to look after ourselves. And that codependency piece that we've been talking about is something that we have to learn to recognize in ourselves and start to use that compass that she talked about to adjust things. So so back to those 3 kinds of codependency. So the reactive kind is when they're good, you're good. When they're not, you are not. So what this does is it keeps the entire household, if it's a household, or the classroom, if it's a classroom, or the workplace, if it's a workplace, in chaos. Uh, this is an advantage to the person with the substance problem, if that's particularly what we were talking about, or the person on whom the codependency is directed on, because uh, there are always other people's issues to pay attention to, and they always have an excuse because everything is crazy. It's too noisy, there's too much going on, it's not organized, whatever. They can also feel some guilt because at some level they'll understand that they're causing the pain to the people that they care about. And it's interesting, I've talked to thousands of teenagers, about how they're doing in school and what's going on. And the kids who are disruptive typically are disruptive because they don't know how to regulate themselves, or they're trying to get attention, or they think that nobody cares. But they also uh, feel bad about what they're doing. But one of the things is they keep doing it, and that stresses them out too, because guilt equals stress. So it becomes another reason to self-medicate, or to distract, or to look at your phone, or whatever. uh, when the codependent enters recovery and stops reacting to that person with the problem, the excuse that the teacher or the parent or the friend or the boss or the coworker is always upset, that excuse goes away. And then they have to start to look at themselves. So the controlling type is that's the second type of codependency. And they often interlink with each other, as orchestrating everything in the person's life so that they don't have problems. So, like, making sure that everything's lined up for them. And but what that does is it takes away the natural consequences as well as natural rewards. If you don't figure out how to do something, you don't get the rewards from it. If somebody else tells you how to do it, or does it for you, you don't get the natural reward of being organized, or of being responsible, or dealing with something that was uncomfortable. And sorry. So we have to be really careful we don't do too much for other people. Uh, and I mean, there's just like two more little cartoons there. The one with the strings is, the all the different ways we try to control people. And then the why can't you raise your self-esteem so then you can raise mine is just one of those obvious, uh, uh, classic codependent sort of situations. And then enabling, removing obstacles for the person, excuses, paying bills, doing everything for them. And what this does is allows them to use all their time and resources to pay attention to their addiction, whether it's their phone, or drugs or alcohol, or whatever it is. If we remove the obstacles that they would have to deal with, then they get more time to do what they're doing. Uh, And I mean, another little classic cartoon, your son, we're stuck. Do you mind giving us a hand with your homework? And again, we have to be really careful not to do too much for those people that we care about. So I'm going to stop this here, and then tomorrow we'll uh, finish that piece on codependency. So I hope you got something out of that. And I will be back with you tomorrow.